Hello, today we're looking at plant diseases, and this is for the higher tier, and it's also for the biology only course. So if you're doing combined science, the Trilogy course, you don't need to know this information. So we're going to look at how plant diseases can be detected, and we're going to look at 7 different ways that would give clues to whether plants have a disease or not. The first one is spots on the leaves, and we've looked at an example of that, a disease called rose black spot, and that was caused by a fungus. And if you want details of that, you can see that in another video. A second way we can detect plant diseases is by stunted growth. That means when a plant doesn't grow to as large a size as it could, and that could be based on having a disease or sometimes even what we call a deficiency. We sometimes see areas of decay or parts of the plant that are rotting. That could be due to a bacterial infection. We also can possibly have the growth of what we might say is the equivalent of a tumor in a plant, but we can see growths on the plant that might indicate a plant disease. We also have malformed stems or malformed leaves. That could indicate a disease. We could have discolored leaves as well, so discoloration of leaves or parts of the plant, so it's not the expected or the color it's supposed to be. Sometimes pests like small insects, slugs, snails, caterpillars, that kind of thing can have an impact as well. One particular example of a pest is an insect called an aphid, and aphids tend to have a mouthpiece that can penetrate or push into the stem of a plant, into the phloem in fact, and they can take out the cell sap that's present in the phloem, and that contains the sugars that the plant is transporting around, and that could then impact the growth of that plant. So aphids is one example that you need to know about, and that's a pest for particular kinds of plants, often rose bushes in fact. So stunted growth is just a diagram there just to show what we mean, but the 7 ways in which we can possibly detect diseases in plants are on the screen there, so I'm just highlighting those. And the next question is, well, once we suspect or see one of those or more of those 7 ways in which a plant could be infected with a disease, what do we do about it? Well, there are 3 main things in terms of identification of what the issue might be, and this is on the higher tier. It's quite interesting that it's on the higher tier because I'm not really sure it's that demanding. However, the 3 methods are that firstly, you could check with a gardening manual. So if you're not sure what the disease is, you can look in a gardening manual to look at the symptoms and then possibly identify it. The second way is to take the plant to a lab. So you might not do this if you're just growing a plant at home. You might just get rid of the plant, but if you're a grower and you make money from growing particular kinds of plants, you might want to take it to a laboratory to be tested to see what that disease might be. We can also use testing kits, and testing kits often contain these things called monoclonal antibodies, and we've looked at that in detail again in another video. But monoclonal antibodies can attach to particular proteins or particular antigens on bacteria, and you might be able to then identify what particular disease a plant might have using a testing kit. Okay, so 3 methods for identification, 7 methods for detection, and all quite important, but in fact all just memory work, so you must know this for your exam. So the last thing is just focusing in on 2 particular issues with plants, and one of those is stunted growth. So we're going to look at stunted growth and what the issue behind that could be, and also something called chlorosis. But stunted growth is often caused by a deficiency in a particular ion, and that's called nitrate. And nitrate you might see sometimes written as NO3 with a small minus. That's just to show that it's a nitrate ion. And nitrates are really important because they contain an important element, which is nitrogen. Nitrogen is needed to make very important chemicals called amino acids. We've looked at amino acids in a previous video when we were talking about digestion, and also ribosomes in the cells video. But nitrogen is needed to make amino acids. Amino acids make proteins by a process called protein synthesis, and proteins are needed for growth. So if we don't have nitrate ions, we don't have nitrogen, which means a lack or a reduced amount of amino acids, and therefore less protein, and therefore we could have stunted growth. The second disease we wanted to look at was called chlorosis. So we could just highlight those 2. But chlorosis is to do with a lack or a lower amount of chlorophyll than is normal in a plant. And this could cause a pale or yellowish looking leaves on a plant, and it actually results in a reduced amount of photosynthesis. And photosynthesis, as you know, is very important for making sugars, particularly glucose, and glucose also actually contributes to making protein. So if we don't have photosynthesis, it could lead to a lack of growth or even death of the plant. And this chlorosis could be caused by a lack of magnesium ions. Magnesium ions are really important because they are part of the structure of chlorophyll. So caused by a magnesium deficiency, and magnesium is an important part of the chlorophyll molecule. So if we don't have magnesium, or we have a reduced amount of magnesium, we're going to get reduced amount of chlorophyll and therefore less photosynthesis. Okay, so 2 particular plant diseases you need to know the details of, as just shown on the screen there, and 7 ways in which we can detect the diseases in plants. Okay, so all part of the higher tier, all part of biology only, and that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching.